World-renowned leadership consultant John C. Maxwell was once famously quoted saying, "If you wouldn't follow yourself, why should anybody else?" Everything rises and falls on leadership, and regardless of the size of your organisation, whether you're a one-man band, whether you're a large organisation with lots of staff, leadership plays a significant role. In this series of podcasts, I have world-famous leadership consultant Peter Cox from Leading from Growth coming on the show, and he's talking about 4 specific areas of leadership within organisations. We're speaking about allowing yourself to be led. We're talking about finding the right people to lead you. We're talking about whether or not you're the right person to lead your organisation. And then we're talking about how to find leaders within your organisation. Peter's also very generously offered, for the first 100 listeners, a free copy of his book, which is called The Dream is Everything, which you'll be able to get through the show notes on the site shed. And likewise, there'll be a link there where you'll be able to download a free copy of the 12 Leadership Essentials. So I thoroughly encourage you to check that out. Anyway, stay tuned. Hope you enjoy.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello and welcome back to Toolbox Talks. This is episode 3 of the leadership series that I'm conducting with my co-host, Peter Cox. Peter, welcome back to the microphone.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, so Pete, in the first episode, for the listeners that missed it, we were talking about allowing yourself to be led. In the second episode, we were talking about finding the right people to lead you. And in this episode, we're talking about, are you the right person to be leading your organisation? Now, this might sound like a bit of a no-brainer topic. Of course, I'm the right person to be leading my organisation. It's mine. However, I know very often that's not the case. Pete, why have we decided to include this topic in this series?
Sorry, Matt, I missed that.
So why are we going to be talking about, whether or not you're the right person to be leading your organisation? Would that not be an obvious, surely if it's my company, I'm the leader of the organisation, right?
Because my mentor taught me that everything rises and falls on leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're leading people, it doesn't matter whether you're the business owner, that is just a title. That doesn't make you a leader.
Exactly.
If you're a head coach, that is a title. It doesn't make you a leader. And the key is, what do you need to do better to lead the people you have around you? What your business needs or what your organisation needs from you is to be a better leader, not a better business owner.
I know a couple of organisations, building company in Melbourne, which we work with, and a plumbing company in Sydney, which we work with. And in both those scenarios, the owner of the company employed a CEO because they both knew that they were not the right person to be leading that organisation towards growth.
That is a very wise investment.
Yeah.
I've got some clients who aren't natural leaders. They had the vision for the business, but they are not natural leaders. And with my process over the last 12 years, I've surrounded them in their organisational chart with natural leaders, and their business has gone from 3 million. It's going to hit 100 million now.
Wow.
As a result of surrounding themselves with leaders, even though they themselves aren't natural leaders, but they have the vision. They have networking skills. But they aren't great leaders.
I would even go as far as to say it's probably not that uncommon for the entrepreneur to perhaps not be the leader in that organisation. I mean, I know you, like as an entrepreneur, you do tend to have a lot of the vision and a lot of the ideas and all these things come to mind. But it's the implementing, getting people to implement those things is often not your forte.
Correct. You're only as good as who you surround yourself with.
Right.
And all great entrepreneurs and great leaders understand the importance of that. Just like you can tell the worth of a fruit tree from the quality of the fruit it regularly bears, you can tell the quality of a leader from the results they achieve, from the bottom line accomplished, to the culture they build and the loyalty they engender in their team is a good example of this. Leaders will only achieve results if they possess and maximise certain leadership qualities.
Yep.
While each leader can differ in many aspects and strengths, there are some universal leadership qualities each leader must be rock solid in to effectively lead, and it's on these that leaders are judged upon. So, your listeners are listening to this right now. They own their own business. They're running a small or large organisation. They have to ask themselves, am I actually the right person to lead this organisation?
Yep.
They may have the vision, but it doesn't make them the leader. And as you started off today, that is why that client in your Melbourne, from Melbourne, has done a very wise thing, bringing someone in to into that CE role, because they understand they're not good enough to lead that business. Some of my clients use me at a board level, independent board member, to make them all accountable, because they want me to lead the boards.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It didn't happen overnight. That's process. That was something that came through the hard school of knocks to figure it out. But I mean, once they sort of implemented that, then they started growing. So there was definitely something in that. I think as well, what it allowed him to do, really at the end of the day, it allowed him to focus on what he was actually really good at, which was more, getting out there and doing the work and, dealing with the customers at that level and taking hold of that sort of side of the business.
Effective leaders are constantly casting the vision and inspiring the team they lead to buy in and commit to it. They're setting clear expectations and leading by example. They possess a high level of influence. The number one characteristic of a leader is influence. Influence means follow me.
Yep.
John Maxwell taught that to me a long time ago. If you don't have influence, you're not a leader. So when I work with my clients and lead them, one of the things that I want to grow in the organisation with the leaders they surround themselves with, as well as themselves as the business owner or CEO, is what can we do to grow your influence so more people will follow you?
Yep.
Clear and effective communication to the team, building and driving a winning team culture, and building and driving momentum. These are leadership qualities that can't be learned. Some people just don't have the nous to do it.
Is that right? So you're saying it's not for everybody. There is, it's sometimes it's just never going to happen for certain people.
Unless they recruit people around them that have these skills.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you can't own the business. It doesn't mean you don't know anything about the plumbing industry, electrical industry.
Interesting. So, I mean, how would you go about increasing, influence? Like, how do you make that transition from? I mean, say you're a one-man band, or you've got a couple of guys working for you, and you know that in order to go to 10 guys, you're going to have to change a lot of things. You're going to have to stop being mates with these guys at that super personal level. It's hard to lead someone that you go down to the pub with, or I suppose every Friday, and bet at the TAB with. Like, you've really got to separate yourself, don't you?
That is a key leadership characteristic to lead people, and that's why there's less leaders and more followers. You've heard the saying, it's lonely, leadership's lonely at the top. It is. I drive into my clients, if you want to be the business owner, if you want to be the leader, then you need to lead at what I call arm's length.
Yep.
You're not their mates.
Yeah.
And when I started 6 years ago with one of my clients in the online travel industry, there was 12 staff. There's now 145 staff, and the owners of that business were in their early 30s, and they were mates with everyone, and they weren't reaching their potential, and that's why they reached out to me and they asked me to come in and lead them as business partners and to start leading key people they have around them, and for me to help them find better people that could lead in specific roles, and so that I could remove them so that they could become more arm's length. The more arm's length you become, the more influence you're going to have.
Yeah, and I think this ties in pretty closely to the realisation that this guy I'm talking about, Tim down in Melbourne, had. Like, he was such good friends with all the guys that worked for him, because he'd been running the business for 10 years already, and it was going well, but they just weren't growing, and they were all mates, it was really hard for him. It's really hard to lead your mates. So that's when he decided to bring on a CEO and step back from, I suppose, that directive point of view. And then when he did that, when he had the CEO come on board, and the CEO was also delegating stuff to him as well. So, from the guys in his business, although he was the owner, he was still getting instruction from people what to do, as were the other guys. So it didn't really affect the relationship level harmony. Like, they all sort of understood they had roles in order to get to the next stage. And because it was coming from somebody else, it made sense and everyone did it, and it worked well.
Bringing people in that can be independent or people that can create separation, which I call arm's length, is a critical leadership strategy to lead organizations.
Yep. So when you're dealing with customers or when you're dealing with clients and as at the director level, and if you're having your onboarding, scoping with them or whatever you do, is that a hard conversation to have with some business owners saying that, okay, listen, you probably need to develop other areas in this other leaders in these areas because you're not doing it properly?
Correct. I come in independently.
Yeah.
I look at the landscape. What I do in let's say an organisation had 20 people in it, and the business owner brought me into that organisation. The first 2 days I will spend, and I'll do 10 one-on-ones
with the staff,
with key people that I discuss with the owners about who could be an emerging leader, who has serious responsibility in your business model, and independently I profile those people, and then I give a debrief back to the business owners who has real leadership potential and who doesn't. And because I'm independent, I don't care what they think.
Yeah. Do you find often, Pete, in that scenario, you'll get people that'll, put names forward for people that could potentially be leaders based off the fact that they've been in the organisation for a long time, not necessarily because they possess the skills they need?
Sometimes. I mean, when I begin my process, I spend half a day or a full day firstly with the business owners or the board or the CEO, and I take them through my process. I do my process with them first before I take it into their organisation. Mm-hmm. And that then takes the scales off their eyes, and they understand how they can now use me with my leadership dynamics process to really identify emerging leaders and people that have leadership potential.
Yep. Okay. Well, look, I think we're pretty much getting to the end of this topic. I mean, finding the right people to lead your organisation. I suppose in some instances, you're going to have those people that exist within your organisation. And in other instances, you may have to go out and find people. So is there like a recruiting process as well?
Yes. And I drive into all my clients, you never stop recruiting.
Yep.
The key word is never.
Yep.
And if you want to grow your business, you need to know what your organisational chart needs to look like in 12 months' time.
Okay, well, this is interesting. This is really interesting, and I think we're gonna dive into this in the final episode. We're going to talk about how to find the leaders within your organisation. I want to talk about in that episode. I want to talk about people that are currently working for your company, and then I want to talk about ways that you can go and find the right people to fit your company and how you can approach them. So is there anything you wanted to wrap up on this episode of are you the right person to lead your organisation?
Well, we're talking about leadership. Yep. Leadership is a spirit. Leadership comes from within. Not everyone has the desire to want to be a leader. Not everyone is a natural leader, a born leader. And if you're not a natural or born leader and you're leading a team or leading a business, then you need to recruit those types of people into your organisation and the business will scale. You won't be able to stop it.
Yep.
You never stop recruiting. You need to want to be led, though, through this type of process.
Yep.
You have to allow yourself to be led. You need to be led by someone that you trust. And you must be challenged as a leader if you really want to grow in leadership. Who are you accountable to? Who's leading you? That's the beginning of this whole process to growing your leadership and growing your organisation.
Yeah. So I suppose as a takeaway for me with this episode, what I'd just really like to communicate to the listeners out there is the fact that there's a very good chance that although you're the owner of your company, you may very well not be the right person that's going to take that business to the next level. So just be responsive of that. This isn't, it's not like a personal insult to you. This happens on, companies of huge scale, actually probably even more so. So it doesn't mean that you're not good at what you do. It just means that there's potentially people out there that are better. So look, on that note, Pete, I think we should probably wrap up this episode and come back with the final one where we're just talking about some more specifics about finding leaders and developing leaders. So are you good with closing that one up now?
Once again, your listeners, the value is if there's one thought they take from our conversations brought about a change in their thinking, it'll bring about a change in their leadership behaviours, and it was worth tuning into our conversation.
Yeah, good point. Good point. If you don't change your thinking, nothing changes.
Correct.
All right, thank you. We'll come back shortly in the following episode, and we're going to be talking about how to find leaders and how to develop leaders in your organisation. So stay tuned for that. That's a wrap. I hope you're enjoying this series on leadership. If you'd like some more information about Peter, he's offered a free copy of his book to the first 100 listeners. So if you want to head across to the show notes, you can download a copy of that book there. While you're there, click on the link to download a free copy of the 12 Leadership Essentials. The topics that you learn within that document, you can apply directly in your business. So thank you very much, Peter, and enjoy, listeners. So if you haven't already, head across to the siteshed.com and register for our Toolbox Talks, where you'll be regularly sent great episodes just like this straight to your inbox, so you'll never miss one. If you want to join the community, you can head across to the siteshed.com/members, where for a small monthly fee, you'll get access to regularly updated training material, as well as access to our forum where you can mingle and collaborate with trade-based business owners just like you from all over the world. If you're enjoying this podcast, please head across to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it, and it helps us spread the word and reach the masses. Likewise, if you know anyone that might benefit from the content we create, then please go ahead and share this with them.
You've been listening to Toolbox Talks by The Site Shed. For more great content just like this, head across to thesiteshed.com and join the amazing community of savvy trade-based business owners.